You're listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, the podcast for accomplished professionals who want to identify what's next in their career and make it happen without compromising what matters most. I'm your host, Randi Roberts, an executive and career life coach, and I'm glad you're here. If you want to feel more energized about your work again, this show is for you. So let's get into it. Hi, thanks so much for joining me. Where we are in the series of discussing the 8 pillars of career satisfaction, we are up to leadership. And when I chose that last week as the pillar we covered this week, I just sort of left myself open to see where it showed up. And I feel like I've been a leadership magnet all week in terms of seeing examples. And it's something that I regularly talk to my clients about, of course, but I feel like different quotes and different ideas and different books and things have been showing up for me all week. So I'm kind of really enjoying setting the intention for the week, what we'll be talking about and seeing what shows up. So I hope you've had a good week. Thanks for joining me to talk about leadership. And this, how did this pop up as one of the pillars of career satisfaction? It's actually really hard to overestimate how important leadership is. And we've all heard that the number one reason that people leave a job or a company is a bad boss or bad leadership. And I think that might be changing a little bit now because of the phenomenon that's being called the Great Resignation. And it seems like what's underpinning that is also knowing that your job has meaning and that you are contributing to something bigger than yourself. But I would say that your boss and the company leadership has a lot to do with reinforcing that and giving you something to tap into. So I haven't seen any quantitative data on it, but the boss and the leadership is still a predominant reason why people leave, which means it can be a reason why people stay. And the things that we do, that we are, and that we exemplify can really help retain top talent and drive the growth of our company. There's an assessment that I use with a lot of clients about leadership. And the definition that's used there, which I think is so interesting, is the ability to influence. Leadership is the ability to influence. And I wasn't sure I was on board with that at first, but the more and more I've been working with it, I actually really like it because it strips it down to its essence, the ability to influence. Most of my clients are leaders and have leaders. Even if they're the CEO, they're reporting to a board. So leadership is, it's 360 degrees. It's all around us. We lead our teams. We lead our peers. The ability to lead upward and influence upward is a real critical success factor in a career. And we lead in every aspect of our lives. If you think about the ability to influence, we're leading in our families. We're leading amongst our friends, certainly in our communities. So it really is everywhere around us. And thinking about what do people need in leadership? This is something that I've been totally tuned into this week. What do we need from our leaders? And I think the essence of it to a great extent is inspiration. A lot of the things that I'm about to mention ladder up to that. But some of the things that we need from our leaders are clarity. Clarity of mission. What's the company about? What's the problem that the company is solving in the world or the need that the company is meeting in the world? We need clarity of where are all of our efforts going? What's it leading to? We need clarity of the goal. So that, the mission is the bigger picture, but the goal is, for the year, for the quarter, whatever that time is, what is it that we're aiming towards? Leadership has the opportunity to make that very clear so people know if they're doing the right things. People also need from their leaders some guidelines around what are the operating rules of the company? What are the ethics? What does good look like? So people know how to behave and how to engage. And what leaders do in that regard is probably more important even than what they say, because that consistency is so critical. Other things that we need from our leaders are we need them to be responsible and to take accountability. We all know what it's like to work with people that do that. If there's a leader who really takes the credit when it's due to them, but also takes responsibility if things didn't work out the way that they had intended, sets a tremendous aspect of the culture, because it makes it okay for people to, first of all, you learn from the things that didn't go according to plan. If they take accountability, it didn't work the way we thought it would, let's sit down and mine the learnings out of it so that we can do better next time, or we can avoid that next time, whatever that looks like. And it makes it okay for everyone in the organization to take risks, because that if there's accountability, if people take responsibility when things don't work out, it makes it okay for that to happen elsewhere in the organization. Now, obviously they need to be educated risks. They need to be the right risks, but there has to be a safe place to try them, or the company's not going to grow in an incremental fashion. Integrity is huge in leadership and what we need to see. And really what that means is, sort of the thread that's woven through everything that they do. Is everything aligned? Is there consistency in their behavior, so that what you see from them on any given day is the same thing you can expect in the future? That's huge. Any lack of consistency there, or lack of integrity, is just confusing for the organization in terms of what you need. Another big thing that people want to see from their leaders is courage. Organizational courage, the courage to step up and make the tough decisions, deliver the hard message. And sometimes, that can show up in big and small ways. What's the direction a company should take, or even down to managing performance. We all like to work in an organization where good performance is recognized. But at the same time, it's really important for leaders to be courageous about managing performance that isn't what is in the company's best interests. Sometimes it's really hard for leaders to do, but the people around you notice. They see how you handle those kinds of situations and the courage that you bring to that kind of, setting expectations and holding people accountable to them. And while it's hard to do, it is possible from a leadership perspective. You make that tough decision with your head, but you can implement it with a heart. You can carry it out in a way that feels aligned with the ethics, and it's just what the company needs from us. Other things are creating an environment where we can be motivated. Now, notice I didn't say good leaders motivate their people. It's another way to look at it. But to me, the difference is that we are responsible for our own motivation in a way. But what leaders are responsible for is creating the environment where we can tap into that motivation. And so to me, it may be a subtle difference, but it's an important one. The good news there is that we can all take responsibility for our own motivation and hopefully seek out the place that we can really tap into that. It's interesting because this wasn't on my list initially, but just today, I've had 2 conversations with clients about trust, not just their need to trust their leaders, but to know that the leaders trust them, that they have the support and the confidence of their leaders to be able to make their own decisions. They don't feel empowered if they don't feel trusted. So it really is important in getting the most out of your people. And a leadership skill that I have always thought is tremendously important and maybe underappreciated, although I am hearing more conversation about it lately, a lot more, is self-awareness. It facilitates everything. A self-aware leader knows what their great strengths are so that they can really lean into them and double down on them. But they also know the areas that aren't their strengths. So they can either develop those skills or complement them by bringing people onto the team that are strong in a certain area. Leaders that think they know best about everything may be opening themselves up to some blind spots. The strongest leaders often are people that build a team that's balanced, that has complementing strengths. And in that way, there are many fewer blind spots. So I think that level of self-awareness is really important. And, Brene Brown says self-awareness matters. Who we are is how we lead. And I love that quote because really, who we are is how we lead. Basically, what it means is bring your authentic self. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a client. She was preparing for an interview and we were talking about the issues that she wanted to mention. And she was taking furious notes. And I said, hang on just a minute, just, take a breath. Let's think about this. All the things that you're making notes of are things that are true for you. So just be yourself. It's so much easier when you're just yourself. You're bringing everything you have, being authentic, knowing what your strengths are, and just really leaning into that. So I'd love to hear over the next couple of weeks, what else you think you need from your leaders. I've come up with this list. What's missing there? What would you add to the list? Because believe me, I've added to the list every day this week. And something else that occurs to me is these are the things that we need from our leaders. Is that any different than what we strive to deliver as leaders? Kind of interesting thought. So then what I always try and bring this down to is, how do we make this actionable? Here's all these great thoughts about leaders. How do we make this actionable for ourselves so that we can be the best leaders possible? There's an exercise that I do with a lot of clients around developing their ideal leadership persona. So there's, a lot of things that we talk through and putting it together, but one sort of guiding principle there is often thinking about the best boss they've ever had or the leaders that they most look up to. And there's different ways that we try and pattern ourselves after that, or at least identify what those skills are so that you can start thinking about how you want to emulate them. But what's really interesting is in thinking about that best boss, it's a matter of what did they do, but it's also a matter of how did they make you feel? Because that can be really powerful in helping you bring out your best. Now, we've all learned painful lessons from the worst boss we've ever had, or bosses that, that we have seen that have done, that we've learned a lot about what we want not to do and who we want not to be. And that's valuable too in identifying your desired leadership persona. I hope it's valuable because the things that we go through that are painful, we may as well make them mean something. And I think there is a lot of learning to be mined there. So that's, some thoughts about how you can make it actionable in terms of the leader that you want to be. But it also has important implications if you're looking to make a job change, because if you know the kind of leadership that allows you to be at your best, the trick then is, how do you get really good at finding it? When you're showing up for an interview, I have always viewed that interview goes both. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, because your goal is not just to get the job, but to find the place that is the best fit for you and where you can bring your all and be at your absolute best. So that's the other thing to think about is, how do you get good at putting your radar up during that process, during that search process of, finding the leadership that you need. And then turn it the other way. I mentioned that my clients are both leaders and have leaders. Okay, so if you're in the interview process, how do you get good at finding what you need in leadership? But you're also in a position to be recruiting people into your organization. So how do you keep those things front and center in leading your business? And how do you proactively share that with people that you might be bringing into your company? If who we are is how we lead, let's show people who we are. And that's the best way to find the fits for our organization and be able to bring out the best in everybody and truly inspire and influence. So those are my thoughts for the week on leadership. Next week, we are going to look at the pillar of growth and how and why that's so important for people in terms of their career satisfaction. And growth is also going to be the theme for March, probably because I'm just itching for spring and it's starting to feel that way in March. So we're going to be looking for examples of growth all around. So I invite you before next week to take a look at the career satisfaction assessment and do a little thinking on where you fit on the growth scale. Is that an area that's feeling fulfilled for you, or is that an area of need? We can have that discussion next week, and then during the month of March, we can see how we can fill that bucket. So thank you so much for joining me. I wish you a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, follow, rate, and review. Do all the things to show your support for this podcast. It helps other professionals who want to feel more energized about their work again find us. And if you want to take this thinking further, please follow me on LinkedIn, where I share content on a regular basis. You can also get on my email list by downloading the Career Satisfaction Assessment or through my website. All these links are in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. I truly appreciate that you make the time for yourself to listen to the show. See you next week.